What up, what up? All right, I think we're going. Letting a couple people trickle in. All right, there's a little bit of a delay on my video, but it should be good enough. I'll try to answer questions as they go. This also, after this session, I'll make sure to like timestamp the live stream and I'll keep it up. So if you can't watch it all, don't worry, but I think it should be a fun little session. Excited to be back on the live stream. I don't know. It's been like a month plus maybe. I want to be more consistent with the live streams. I don't know if I'm going to get like a certain day I'll do them. I might try to like put some sort of like calendar that's just always there and has the live stream scheduled in advance, so they're a little bit more organized, because I kind of last minute post when one's going live and who shows up. So we'll see if we can do a little bit better in the future. Curious in the chat, where are people tuning in from? I'm always it's always interesting to see. But let me share my screen. See if I can figure this out. I'm always like struggling with this platform. Share screen. Okay. I think everyone should be able to see that. Got someone from Palestine, Helsinki, London, a lot of different places. I'm currently in the greater Boston area. I'm in the state of New Hampshire here in the United States. Alrighty, Quarto crash course. So Quarto might be new to a lot of people here. Oh, I love the 1 a.m. tune-in. That's huge. Shout out to the heart there. All right, I'm going to get into this. I kind of outline the course, and as I just said a couple minutes ago, I'll make sure to leave this live stream up, and I'll also try to retroactively timestamp it so you can find exactly what you're looking for pretty easily. Also, can people just give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear me all right, if my audio is coming in fairly clearly? I could connect to I usually am hardwired in, but I just realized that I'm just using Wi-Fi right now, so hopefully it's good enough. Let's see. Okay, perfect. Everyone's giving me thumbs up. Perfect. All right. So Quarto crash course. Quarto is a tool that I've been using a lot recently. So I think in addition to YouTube, I do a decent amount of like freelance work. And one of my recent freelance projects has been automating sending analytics PDF reports to a company. Basically, they're a property management company. And what I've been doing for them is doing all sorts of analytics, condensing and aggregating all the results and then pushing it to a PDF and just sending that on a weekly basis via email and Slack to the company. And I've been using Quarto under the hood to allow me to do that. So a little bit about this session. We'll talk about just what Quarto is and why to use it, just to start off. I don't know if these times are right. We'll see if these times are actually accurate. I kind of just threw some rough estimates here, and we'll definitely find out. Do some installation setup. We'll talk about Markdown, if people aren't familiar with Markdown, because that leads you into specifically the Quarto Markdown and being able to use this visual editor. And none of this needs to make sense yet. I'll get into all of the nitty-gritty details in just a moment. Then we'll talk about like publishing. So if you build some sort of dashboard or build a website, how can you actually get that live in an easy manner? And then we'll do some hands-on learning, and happy to answer questions and kind of just build some cool things live with everyone here on the session. And then I don't know if this is actually going to happen. I feel like we'll kind of do some automation and advanced topics maybe throughout. I'm not going to actually show how to like schedule this right now, but I hope to post a similar video on my channel in the future. And then, yeah, some of the hands-on learning, what we're going to do is we're going to build some HTML sites/reports. We'll build some PDF and Word documents, dashboards, and slideshows. So just a little bit about what Quarto is. It's a markup language to build all of these things that you see on the screen. And also, yeah, you can access the code here. Sorry, I'm skipping around. I forgot the order that this slideshow is in, but I also want to say thank you to Posit Connect Cloud for sponsoring this. Posit has professional products such as Posit Connect Cloud. Posit is also the company that builds the open source libraries like Quarto, and I've done a previous video on Shiny for dashboards. So thank you, Posit Connect Cloud, for sponsoring, and I'll show them in a bit. But okay, jumping into what Quarto is and why to use it. Quarto is a markup language that basically allows you to easily make HTML websites, make slideshows, make dashboards, all of that, embed Python code. It's just a very nice way to both, write your code, but also share it. So kind of what I think about when I think about Quarto is that as a data scientist, as a data analyst, as someone that writes code professionally, you kind of have your normal workflow that you like to use when you're doing your work. So I typically am using Jupyter notebooks. I'm doing all sorts of analysis, and then I am, I have that there. But then at some point I need to communicate that to a company that I'm working for, to a business stakeholder, et cetera. And they don't really want to see my messy hundreds of lines of code. They would much rather see a slideshow, just a simple PDF document, a dashboard. And basically, Quarto positions itself nicely in between these two things where I can write my normal code, but then easily output it to any of these formats that is more appropriate for someone that's non-technical to see. So that's kind of the 1,000-foot view of what Quarto is, and it'll make a lot more sense once I start sharing my screen and getting into the nitty-gritty details of it. And then you can do all sorts of stuff with Quarto. You can build HTML and HTML websites. So here's an example I saw on Quarto's gallery. So I'll probably link Quarto's gallery page in the description after I'm done with the stream. But if you just look up Quarto gallery in your Google search bar, you'll find examples like this one. So this was all, this full website was made with Quarto. You can make all sorts of PDF and Word documents. So subtly plugging my own previous video I linked in the description, but made some analytics PDF reports with Quarto, as you can kind of see on the screen. This is, fairly simple from a content perspective, but you can do all sorts of nice layout things and you can automate it. And the cool thing about using Quarto is I could very easily put together a one-page doc that looks like what you see on the right side of the screen. But the cool thing about this video is that we generated hundreds of analytics reports for all the different countries around the world. And you can do that with one click of the button as long as you set up your scripts in Quarto correctly. You can do dashboards with this same markup language, this same Quarto Markdown language. There's interactivity. So I'll show the interactivity, not just static elements. So as you can see with this dashboard, very much interactive. Sometimes you want interactivity. Sometimes you just want something maybe you can print out and share in a more, traditional manner. And then also you can build slideshows. So this slideshow that we are currently walking through was entirely done with one Quarto Markdown file. And I can do all sorts of cool stuff. You can play around, but yeah, this slideshow was made with Quarto as well. And I'll show that code in a little bit. But there's all sorts of nice little features and whatnot as you get more and more advanced with Quarto. So getting into the actual technical weeds of what Quarto is and kind of how to set it up, I recommend checking out the README that's on the GitHub link in the description. I'm going to share my screen. I'll share my full screen. Hopefully nothing crazy pops up on it. Or I'll share the full window. All right. So, and I'll also try to post this in the chat, but we can go to Quarto installation. This is linked in the GitHub repo that's there. I'll also paste it in the chat. But what I recommend is downloading the CLI. You can also do this on most systems if you via pip, and I'll show that in a second. But if you can't figure out how to do it via pip, you'll just want to go to this link, download the CLI here, and kind of follow the installation setup. If you're on Windows, I haven't actually confirmed this for myself recently, but there might be an option to that you have to check to add it to your path. Make sure that that's checked so that your terminal and your command line can read from the Quarto CLI, and CLI stands for Command Line Interface. And then for this live stream specifically, I'll be using VS Code, but if you needed to set it up for, let's say, your Jupyter lab or your some other text editor, and maybe use NeoVim, you can click on these options. So I might click text editor, and it'll have some additional setup instructions, such as Quarto Sublime Text. So helpful depending on what you use, but I'll be doing it in VS Code. So if you click on VS Code, you'll see some more options. You'll definitely want to make sure to get the Quarto VS Code extension, and then we can kind of start actually playing around with Quarto. So long-winded intro, but with that, I'm going to open up Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to do a very, very gentle introduction to Markdown, and then we'll progress into the Quarto Markdown specifically. So I'm going to go ahead and pop up my VS Code window, and I realize that I will need to actually share VS Code. So we will share VS Code. There's a lot of stuff on the screen, but I will open up a new file. So, all right, let me close all of this. There's a lot of files here, but I'm going to just do a new file. And typically when you write Quarto, you need to do .qmd. .qmd stands for Quarto Markdown. So index.qmd is the file I'm going to work off of. And then some installation steps. So for me, what I might do if I didn't have Quarto already, so I'm working in a virtual environment, but I might create a new virtual environment. And this is specifically for Mac, but there's other, you could just kind of do a Google search, maybe ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Claude, any, your favorite editor or favorite LLM will probably tell you this, but you can create a virtual environment. So I see here I'm creating a Python 3.12 virtual environment. I'll just call this new, I don't know, Quarto new. How about? That would set me up with a new Python virtual environment. I might then go ahead and activate that. So I can do, don't worry if this doesn't make sense, but I saved it in my ends spot. Those are where all my virtual environments are. I'm going to activate Quarto new, and this is specifically the MacBook Apple command. There's a similar one for Windows and I think Linux. Activate that. We see now we have this virtual environment activated. And if you want maybe an easier installation is just by doing pip install Quarto CLI. This will give me the CLI in this new virtual environment. Might take a second. And then specifically, I also linked a GitHub repo in the description. So if you want to see all these files, I'll probably add a little bit more documentation to it. But if you want to kind of get set up and be able to run some of these specific Quarto Markdown files that I'll be showing, you can do a pip install -r requirements.txt, and that will install some other libraries that are you need for Quarto. Thank you all for one for the kind words. I really appreciate that. And feel free to ask questions along the way. Like we had a previous question that was, is there interactivity or just static elements? And there is interactivity. Okay, so now we have Quarto set up, like the Quarto CLI set up. We have our libraries installed. The other thing, if you're using VS Code, you'll want to open up your extensions. You can do Command-Shift-X to open up your extensions window, or just go to View, Extensions, and you're going to look up Quarto specifically, and then you'll want to make sure that that is installed. As you can see, I have it already installed. And then you might also want to do Command-Shift-P on Mac. I think it's Control-Shift-P, and you want to select your Python interpreter. And if you created a virtual environment, you can activate that. But just activate whatever Python version you want. I'm going to actually stick with the original Quarto version that I had here. Okay, cool. Setup is basically done now. Now let's talk about what Quarto Markdown is, and just start with Markdown in general. So if people aren't familiar with Markdown, it's just a common way to format text in nice manners. I think what you may have seen Markdown is if you've ever done a GitHub repo and worked on a readme.md. That MD stands for Markdown. It's popular in many different places, not just for GitHub readmes. But we can kind of start with some basic formatting, such as like headers. So $1 is a level 1 header, slightly smaller header. This is a level 2 header, level 3 header. I'm also using GitHub Copilot to help autocomplete some of this stuff. But these are some headers. We could also do like bold text and italic text. We can do hyperlinks, all of this. And so it doesn't look particularly great right here. But when we use this Quarto Markdown renderer, and so right now we just have plain vanilla Markdown, but this still will work with our preview button. So this preview button here in the top right is very much specific to Quarto. When we installed the extension, we got access to this. And when I render this, what we see is all of that headers and whatnot rendered more nicely. So this Markdown over here on the left side of the screen ultimately gets rendered because that's basically there's parsers that know how to render this Markdown syntax into a nice looking, text document over here on the right. Like this link to Google was specifically a hyperlink. But there's all sorts of things we can do with Markdown. I'm going to pause real quick because I do see we have a question. Can someone both be a software engineer and data scientist? 100% yes. I think especially in my own professional experiences, I feel like I'm typically will be employed as like a software engineer. Like I feel like I didn't even consider myself a data scientist until people on YouTube started calling me a data scientist. But I think it really depends on the role that you're in. So especially at small startups, I've found myself, even though I'm doing data-focused work, you end up having to build an application. You have to basically integrate it into your system. You have to know how to deploy it to the cloud. You have to do a lot of those software engineering tasks as a data scientist. So they kind of go hand in hand. Some companies will have them, more, niche, and kind of data scientists work in their own space, software engineers work in their own space, but there is a ton of overlap. It really depends on your skill set. Okay, so here's some Markdown. We could do a lot more stuff with Markdown, so I could, I'm trying to think of a random, okay, I'm going to try to show some other Markdown stuff we can do real quick. For example, if I wanted to include an image in this, I could do this syntax image and then paste an image. I'm curious what this Google, this autocomplete will give me. But yeah, we see now we have a Google image embedded. So this is some more Markdown syntax. I can also make it a little bit more fun and showcase Shrek by posting a image URL here. We see that it gives us a little description. If I leave this blank, we don't get anything, but now we have Shrek in our document, so that's very fun. If you need to see all of the Quarto or the Markdown syntax, I recommend just opening up like a Chrome window and just looking up. I guess you can actually do it from the Quarto website specifically. Go to Guide, go to Markdown Basics, and you can see a bunch of the different options that you have. I realize, though, that I am only sharing my Visual Studio Code window, so you can't actually see what I'm sharing. Here's Markdown Basics. So yeah, a bunch of different, this is quarto.org/docs. You can't, I guess, see the URL, but if you need more Markdown information, check out the link I just shared in I can't speak, in the chat. I see a question. Our team, I like this question, so I'm going to pause real quick. Why is it not showing on the screen? That's weird. Oh, there we go. Our team uses Tableau and Power BI. What advantages to Quarto versus those tools aside from Python are language? I really think that Tableau and Power BI are very powerful tools as well. I think the big advantage for Quarto, it really depends on your team, but I would say that as a data scientist myself, I don't have a ton of experience with Tableau and Power BI. Like, I feel like I'm mostly writing Python code. And so when I'm forced to go from my Python code that I've maybe done a really nice analysis in, and I have all these custom things, it's sometimes very tough to port that to Tableau or port that to Power BI. So I think just working with Python in R out of the box is why you would want to use Quarto versus Tableau and Power BI. But sometimes there'll be maybe your team is doesn't code at all, and maybe that would lean you to use Tableau or Power BI. So the biggest thing is, if you are a team of people that use Python and R, it's just very easy to go straight from your code to a dashboard or something. I do see a question about studying at MIT as well. It was hard at MIT, but I'm very grateful that it was challenging. I think doing challenging things makes you learn more. So I appreciate the being there and learning from a lot of smart people. Yeah, tons of stuff here. This is all Quarto syntax, but I think that's actually get into Quarto Markdown specifically and some of the nice features of that and why you'd use Quarto Markdown versus just vanilla Markdown here. So I'm going to go back to our Visual Studio Code window. Okay. All right, so we have this Quarto Markdown file, but it's really just Markdown right now. And so I think the question is why bother with Quarto? And we start seeing advantages of Quarto specifically as we start adding, I guess, some specific Quarto-specific features. So if I add these 3 dashes, I can start typing in some settings for Quarto. And I actually recommend, if you're using Visual Studio Code, to also close these 3 dashes because it will allow you to do some nice autocomplete. But I can do stuff like title, example, Quarto doc. I can do author. I'm going to actually put my own name, not Shrek. I can do, the date, which is not autocompleted correct at all. And you can see my US coming out of me because I put the month before the day. Oh no, why is this screen not sharing? Hopefully you can see this all right. We have a date. Let's see what else. Why did the date go all weird? Why is it not formatting blue? Is date the wrong thing? Date. That's weird. Oh, I didn't ever close this. Oops. 11, 6. All right. And now if I render it with these options, we can start seeing some other things. So it gives us a nice little formatting here. Even, some additional things that are super cool is if I add like something like table of contents, and you see that it's auto-completing these things for me. So if you ever forget what you have options, like you can use the autocomplete. You can also use, I've linked in the GitHub repo, there's some reference pages to help highlight what all these keywords are. But if I now add a table of contents, we'll see that it adds a nice little table of contents here. And you can actually also like control the TOC depth. So if I made it like 5, we'll see that it is even going further. It even gets the smallest header. And if I added other headers, so like another section, we'll see that when we render this, we start seeing additional stuff. And if I go into like a slightly smaller header, I think if you have content here, we'll see, I don't know. You can play around with that. I'm going to delete this. Other really nice things with the Quarto Markdown features specifically, like probably the biggest thing, and I'm talking about code and how it's friendly with Python and R, but by doing something like this, so you use the 3 tick signs, I don't know, it's the quotation mark thing under or above the tab button on the top left of my keyboard. But if I add those, add Python, and then close it, I can start writing Python code. So I could do, for I in range 10, print I. And now when I render this document, we see that all of that information is on the screen. I'm going to cheat and use some GitHub Copilot, but I might say like, plot a random scatter plot. I can put all sorts of Python code in here. And now if I rerun this, we get a nice looking scatter plot. I have other options here. I could, maybe I don't want the code to show up. I can do echo as false. And rerun that. Now we see the code disappeared. I see someone say MDX, and I have no idea what MDX means. So I'm happy to answer this question if I get clarification on what MDX is. Okay, awesome. So how to insert emoji or stickers on the comment. I think one thing that might help here, I don't know exactly, I think like honestly, I could probably just paste in. So if I found some emoji, my favorite emoji is this, oh no, is this cowboy emoji. If I rerun this, I think that this will render properly. Yeah, so you can just insert emojis and we see it's even in our table of contents. That's kind of funny. So you can just insert emojis normally, but I think one thing that I do want to mention, oh, it's okay. Looks out like a Markdown component similar to JS library. Yeah, that might be similar. I'm not like a super, stop showing. I'm not a huge just JavaScript person, so I don't know if I'm super familiar with the Markdown components specifically, but yeah, that's cool if it is. I feel like there's a lot of overlap with a lot of this stuff. But I think on the emoji topic, I think one other thing I do want to show with getting set up with Quarto Markdown, and this is especially helpful if you're not particularly the best coder, is you can, or just like forget how to do something, you can also right click, especially if you're using the extension in Visual Studio Code, and you can edit in visual mode. And now this is basically, more similar to like a Jupyter notebook looking thing. I can very easily like insert like another image, let's say, or maybe I wanted to insert a table. I can very easily do that. I've just put some random data here. And then if I render this, so it just makes it a little bit easier to do things like add a table like this. So you can use the visual editor. We did a right click to enable the visual editor mode. And then there's all sorts of different options. So like later in this video, we will be using a data set that I got from Kaggle. So like one thing that's cool is I could immediately add in a citation. So oftentimes with papers or something, there's a DOI listing for this. I don't actually know what DOI stands for, but if we go to like Kaggle, for example, so here I am on Kaggle, we're using this full TMDB movies data set. And like one cool thing I see on Kaggle is there's this DOI citation. I can copy this link. Oh, shoot. I don't think you saw my, I don't know if I'm sharing the full window. I think I'm just sharing my Visual Studio Code. So you didn't see me open up Kaggle, but maybe I should preview that one more time. And yeah, if you use Jupyter Lab, there's also instructions on Quarto. If you watch a little bit back earlier in this this live stream, you'll see how to do that. Allows you to deploy to Carlet service. Yeah, I'll show you some deployment options later on. And let me just actually share the Kaggle aspect. I'm going to share the full screen here. So you probably can see the screen now. I opened up this Kaggle data set, and it's TMDB, which stands for the movie database. It's a kind of open source aggregation of movie ratings and whatnot. But within a Kaggle data set, there's this DOI citation option, and I just copied this identifier. I went back to my Visual Studio Code, and then I can go ahead. Oh, shoot, my computer's going to die, huh? Good thing I shared my full screen. I can paste this in, and then I can just add I can add this citation. And now if we render our thing again, we get, you know, a citation of the database, and we see it adds even a reference section to our Quarto Markdown doc. Let me get my charger. That'd be tragic if my computer died. Alrighty. Cool. Go back to this. And then you can get back to the other editor by editing in source mode. But there is, you know, nice things. Like if you forget how to do an image, forget how to do, you know, a bullet list or something with the Markdown syntax, this visual editor can be quite helpful. A lot of different things you can do. So I'm going to go back to source mode, and we see we have this document again. We see the code, etc. I think that that's probably mostly it for like the basics of Quarto. I guess other things that might be helpful is that there's some special syntax. So let me, I wrote some notes down to myself. There's some special syntax type things that you can do. Like one thing is you can start adding different types of like formatting to different sections. Like if I wanted, I'm trying to think of a good example here. If I wanted to like caption this and I didn't have a caption already, I can start typing this pound pipe symbol, and I can type something like fig caption, random scatter plot. I could do like fig, you can see all these autocomplete, fig align, maybe I put it on the right side of the screen. I can do things like this. I don't know if actually this fig align will do what we want it to do, but then I render this. Oh, it's struggling right now. I'm going to go back to sharing just the Visual Studio Code window because I think that it might be getting overexerted by sharing my full screen. I'm also going to close out that so we see that like this added a little label here, it moved it a bit to the right. If I removed this right, I think it would go back to the left. I think it was moved a little bit to the right. Maybe I'm wrong. But there's, yeah, you can see that it moved a little bit. There's some different, options and settings that you can do here with these parameters. You can also, similarly, I could do this like, I could pass this in, and this will make more sense in a bit, but I could also pass in this special syntax with these 3 dots. Pass it in with this 3 dots, and basically pass in different like classes and options this way. So I could do like, I think fig. You could pass in different parameters and stuff here. I'll show this in a bit, but if you ever need to like have a certain class or something, just handling this code chunk, there's some special syntax, and that will make more sense when we get into some specific details. I think one other cool thing to see is that you can start passing in parameters. So like in Python, what this looks like, there's a similar option for R, but I can do this, and then I can do tags, and then I think I just do parameters. I specify something like color equals blue, and then how about in this, we'll make another cell under big header. We'll make another Python block. I'll just print color. And what we can do is if I run this, we see the blue right here. But what's cool is if I ever needed to run this with different settings, I can do Quarto and make it a little bit bigger. Quarto render. When you want to render our index.qmd file, and we're going to pass in the parameter color, and now it's going to be red. And so it looks like I need another library, so I'm going to install that real quick. I'll make sure to add that to the requirements.txt. Quarto render, color red. I might have to close my Visual Studio Code and then open it again. Okay, here is that's a good question. I'll show you the text in a second. I think really what I'm showing right here, though, is kind of highlighting that you can do text. So if I just add some more text, if I just add text in my Markdown as usual and run this, we see that we have a bunch of text here. So you can insert text like this. You can also, like as we can see with this print color, you could insert text by like printing out things with Python. I could just actually, I think, just do Python color. And I think it might, oh no, it probably wouldn't because this is code. It wouldn't list that. Oh yeah, shows blue. So, you can just type out text. You could also print out text. But I wanted to show that if I do a print color here, right, it's going to say blue. But the cool thing is we can do the Quarto render index.qmd. Oh, and I'm dash p to specify the parameter, color, because that's what we named it right here, and then colon, and then red. It's going to regenerate that, and now we see red here. And where this is super useful is that if we have a bunch of different parameters and settings, like we can just run this terminal command and very easily change up the settings of how we create a report. So I think we'll also see this a bit more later on in the live stream. But there's some very helpful command line options. And I feel like spending a good amount of time here with these like Quarto-specific details, but I think it's worthwhile doing. Another cool thing we could do is if I look at my, how do I do Command-Shift-E? If I look at my files, we have a QMD file right here, but I also could very easily convert this to just like a Jupyter notebook. Let me remember what the command is, Quarto-H, Quarto-convert. I could do Quarto convert index.qmd. I think that this will convert it to a Jupyter notebook. So now we have index IPython notebook. If I open this up, let me close out things. But now we see that we have it, that same Quarto Markdown file as a Jupyter notebook. So if you, let's say, wanted to work in a Jupyter notebook and then convert it to Quarto, we similarly could, I'm like kind of nervous. I'm going to just rename this real quick. Index2.qmd. I could similarly do a Quarto convert of our index.ipython notebook, and then I'll bring it back to that Quarto Markdown file. So if you like using Jupyter notebooks, knowing the convert function is quite helpful on the command line too. I think it should keep everything exactly the same. So I'll remove this file now. Is the rendered version a PDF or a dashboard? Many a times we want to present our findings in a document, and converting this render to a PDF would be great. Great question. So one other option we have up here is format. So right now, by default, I believe that this is a HTML file. And we can see that because in our output here, we have a bunch of different things. And index, we see the file extension is HTML. Also worth noting, one other thing that I did do is I specified an output directory. Otherwise, it will just go in the same directory you have all your other files. So I have this _quarto.yaml. This is a special file you can include in a repo that you use with Quarto. And if you add project : output directory, you can specify where things go. So I have it all going right here in output. But one cool thing on your question is that one of the options we have with any Quarto document is format. So by default, I think it's going to be an HTML format. So you could publish this as a website. But one thing that's really cool that we can do is we could add multiple formats. So I could do format : HTML. I'm going to just put the default settings for HTML. And I also want to maybe render a PDF format with this too. Now if I re-render this, we see that there's this other formats PDF, and there might be a little bit of configuration you need to do to get this PDF to work great. But if you open this up, I don't know if it will preview here. Basically, you could click on this and open up the PDF. We also see in our output, we have probably an index.pdf somewhere. Maybe I actually have to, I'll open this up in our browser real quick. So I can go to this URL to preview it. If I click on other formats, Hopefully this shares. Other formats PDF. It's saying not found. One sec. I'm going to rerun this real quick. All right. Run this. Other formats PDF. Pop this open. Click on other formats. Why is it saying not found? That's weird. I might have messed something up. Oh, it's, I think, having some issue with the PDF. I'm going to try this again. I'm going to just open up a new terminal window. Run this. Let's just watch to see if it makes a PDF. Okay, I'm going to open this up. Other formats PDF. Okay, there it goes. Now it's generating one. And we see now we have a PDF version of that same HTML format. So this is super helpful, yeah, if you're in the situation where you want to have some interactivity, but you also have people that just need to like print this out and kind of deal with it in a more traditional format. You can specify the format that you output your documents by doing this. If you just only wanted PDF, you could remove the HTML and just do PDF. I hear standard practices as a data scientist. I don't know if there's any standards here. I think it depends on who you're working with. I'm going to get into some more complex HTML stuff in a sec, and I'm debating whether I show it. I might just show the files and then play around with things a bit. But if you need interactivity, you'll definitely want it to be like HTML or something. If you don't care as much about the interactivity, then PDF is like if you just need people to be able to download this and like view it in an email or something and nothing is interactive, PDF is great because I think everyone's comfortable opening up a PDF file. It really depends on what your team needs and also like depends on the use case. We could also pass in like reveal.js. So the slideshow that I showed at the start of this presentation can be found in presentation.qmd. And so that whole slideshow is just a bunch of code that I added, and it does all the different things that you saw. So if I added format reveal.js to our index.qmd, then I rerun this. We now get another HTML file, but it very much looks like a slideshow. And you can specify the different slides based on the headers. Hopefully that kind of makes sense for the question. I'm going to go back to HTML format though. My lights always turn off on me. All right, so we spent a lot of time, I guess, on this index.qmd file, but I think we covered a lot of good stuff. I think real quick, I'm going to show how we could publish this using Posit Connect Cloud and like have a link to share with people. So I'll do that. I'm going to real quick, I'm going to commit this index.qmd file. I'm going to add the reference that I added and just git commit, added some code changes during live stream, push origin master. Okay, so I just pushed that to GitHub. Okay, so let's say we wanted to deploy a Quarto doc, and I think the question of like, interactivity versus static versus PDF, really like can be seen when you have an interactive element. So I have this one Quarto Markdown file called HTML report. I'll make this a little bit more visible, but what we can do here in Quarto is like we can embed code directly like this. but we also could, call functions from other files. So like in this file called helpers that's in the GitHub repo, linked in the YouTube description, we have a bunch of just different files or functions that can do different types of plots. And we're specifically working with some, as I mentioned at the start of this session, we're working with some movie data. So I think I added the link to the movie data into the GitHub README, so you can go to the bottom of that and see it. But basically, there's this set of movies, has ratings and type of movie in this TMDB small CSV file. So if you go into data, TMDB small, this is in the GitHub repo. One cool thing with VS Code is there's this preview option. So you can start seeing what type of data is in this CSV. So we see like a bunch of different movies. It has an average rating out of 10. It's like Inception and Interstellar were both rated very well with many, many votes. You could even see the highest vote. We have like The Godfather at number 1, Shawshank Redemption. So some good movies. We also, what is the bottom? Oh, I guess it's just previewing this so we don't see everything. Or maybe I can see everything if I scroll all the way to the top. We have like Dragon Ball Evolution with the lowest vote average. Sharknado, personally a favorite movie of mine, also very low average. And I specifically filtered out movies that didn't have 1,000 votes. But then we all have other things like release date, we have revenue, runtime, etc. So a lot of interesting information to work with, budget. We have some URLs we can work with if we want an image of these. A lot of good information. But what we can do is in this HTML report QMD file, basically there's functions that do different plots. There's some plotly stuff. There's some matplotlib stuff. All of that can be found in helpers.py, all linked in the GitHub repo. Do different things. But if I run this HTML report.qmd, we get a movie, a report that looks like this. And where the interactivity really becomes important is if I open this up, like if we looked at a plotly chart like what we see on the screen here, this is super like all these points are super, super congested. And what this is plotting is it's a scatter plot of vote count compared to the vote average. So like, does a movie, if it has more votes, are we expecting it to be, higher rated? And that kind of does make sense. We don't see any very low rating movies that are super high vote count because not as many people are taking the time to watch that movie if it's not worth watching. But one cool thing we can do with Plotly is like, I could filter out different types of these movies. So maybe I just wanted to look at like the top comedy movie. I'll make this slightly bigger so you can maybe read this. So if I just wanted to look at the top comedy movie, taking all of these out, there might be a Plotly setting to uncheck all of these at once. But I click comedy, and now I see only the comedy points. I can see the ratings here in the title. I could also like zoom in on a specific area within Plotly, see that. Then I could, reset the scale, so auto scale. Maybe I wanted to look at action movies. What are the top action movies? Inception, really highly rated. Avatar, highly rated. Deadpool, Guardians of the Galaxy, etc. A lot of these superhero movies. But I also could zoom in here. So the interactivity here on this page is super, super helpful. And I would lose something if I try to port this chart into a PDF report. There's other cool stuff in this report, but the interactivity is super, super important with this Plotly chart specifically. If I go back to the Visual Studio Code, we see all the code there. And you can dive into the details of the code and how it's working. One other cool thing is we can actually like embed values from our data set as like Markdown. So like what I'm doing here, so if we look at the very bottom of this, is we're generating a random movie at the bottom of our HTML report. So it's just grabbing one random row from our data set, and then it's grabbing that row from the, it's grabbing the row, grabbing a random movie from the data set, and then we're able to grab values from the CSV for that. So like taking a URL from the poster path column, we can like smartly embed the URL for the movie by doing something that looks like this. So this is a inline Python element. So we only use one tick mark if we want to do Python code inline. But basically, this was very much related to the question of how do I add text to this? Here we're adding the whole overview from our CSV file as text in our Markdown document alongside like other Markdown elements. So this is like inline Python rendering of certain elements, which is very, very helpful at times. And it is fun, like doing things like this, you get this dynamic nature of this, and like it allows you to be, this integration of code with Markdown lets you generate tons and tons of like reports very easily. Some of these movies are pretty crazy. Box trolls and Smurfs. Love it. Let's see. I feel like I went on a tangent and now I'm totally lost. Anyone have any questions real quick? I feel like I just need to reset for a second. I know there's a bit of a lag. The lag, because I left a little bit of a lag on the live stream, the lag helps me stream at a little bit of a higher quality, but it is at the expense of not seeing any chat messages immediately sometimes. So whenever sometimes I respond to questions a bit late, that is the reason. All right. If questions pile in, I'll answer them as we go. I will show real quick how to publish this to like a website or something. And this is where the sponsor of this live stream comes in, which is Posit Connect Cloud. So I guess one minor thing I'm going to do is, this is all in a GitHub repo. The repo is linked in the description of the YouTube live stream. And if you have your code, if you have your Quarto Markdown files in a GitHub repo that is public, it is super, super easy to publish your work. I'm going to real quick create a new branch. Real quick, in here, if I look at Git branch, we see we're on the master repo. I'm going to just create a branch called like test publish. You can do this anywhere, but one thing that I did see that sometimes the Posit Connect Cloud system can get a little confused if you have many Quarto Markdown files within your repo. So I'm going to real quick only include the HTML report. So I'm going to delete some of these other files that I left in here as tests. And so we're just left with the HTML report Quarto Markdown. On this test publish, I'm going to remove all of these files. I always forget the best way to do multiple removes quickly without, can I do git remove star.qmd? I don't know if that will be what I want, because I only want those ones that were removed. Maybe someone knows. Okay. Git status. We need to remove these things. If I open this terminal up a bit more, I can do like git remove dashboard.qmd, git remove index.qmd, git remove PDF report.qmd, git remove presentation. Don't mind this. This is just some Git stuff that I'm doing. I'm just only having my one QMD file, slideshow QMD. And on that branch, now I'm going to just commit this. And then I'm going to push my changes, test publish. And then I'm going to go to, I'm going to go, now this is a live streamception. I guess I'm paused right now, but in the description, there is a Get Started with Posit Connect Cloud. I'll click on that link. And then what I can do is I can easily publish. You're going to have to create an account if you don't have one already. If I log out real quick, you'll see log in with GitHub. As long as you have a GitHub, it's very, very easy. And then I'm going to go ahead. You know, you can use this. One thing that's cool about Posit Connect Cloud, you can very much use this as a nice, like, interactive portfolio. So like previously on different videos I've done on my channel, as well as posits, we've seen like dashboards. So I'll let this load for a sec, has to boot back up. But you can deploy like dashboards right here. You can deploy your Quarto, but I'm going to go publish Quarto. I'm going to take the repo that we're working off of, Quarto Crash Course. We just created a new branch called test publish. I'm going to go ahead and link that. And then our primary file is html report.qmd. You'll need to make sure within your code that you have like a requirements.txt file that has the different libraries that you need to run your code. That's important, as well as like, you know, your data would need to be included. But I run that, publish it. It clones the repo, you know, within Quarto land, within, I guess, the Posit Connect Cloud land, installs the dependencies, renders the output. So it runs, you know, the Quarto render command that we kind of were seeing and making the Quarto Markdown the nice output. It's rendering, and I'll answer some questions that I see in a second. And then it's publishing. So once it's published, then we'll have, you know, a nice link to this HTML report that we could share with anyone. Awesome. Here's the link that we were working off of. What I could do is like I could go ahead and very easily share this link. Everyone could, you know, try out this link. I'm pasting it in the chat. Hopefully I feel like sometimes the links show up. Okay, the links do show up when I share them. So I'm curious if this will load, you know, get you there. And then, you know, you can test out that same interactivity, you know, and that was just a simple like button click once we had it on GitHub. Very, very easy. I could also download like the PDF version from that. Cool stuff. All right, let me answer some questions that I saw came up. Also, this was the dashboard that I was talking about. So I have a video on creating this dashboard on my channel. If you look up like Shiny Dashboards, Keith, Galli, you'll find this video. It's like, I don't know, probably posted it like 4 or 5 months ago, maybe. Check that out to build a dashboard that looks like this with a different tool. But also I'm showing that off on Posit Connect Cloud. But yeah, very easy way to publish your stuff and have a link that you could share with others. But let's get back to the actual code part. All right, let's answer some actual questions too. All right, questions. The interactive part on graphs looks cool. Can you do the same thing as well if you like return just a table? Yeah, you definitely can. The best way to do that, I think, is like kind of evolving. If I load up a quick Google search, and look up like interactive tables Quarto. There's probably some different way. Dashboard data display. Let's see. This is, okay, tables. All right. Looks like iTables we could use, so I'm going to try this real quick. We will try it live here. Open up our Visual Studio Code. Make it smaller. I struggle so much with making, like, I want everyone to be able to read the code, but I also need to see the code so that I can edit things. But Data Explorer, we'll call this section. We'll add some code. We'll probably need to download iTables. And then we'll probably need to show our data frame that we loaded in here. So let's try this. And we're generating this as HTML, so we should be good on that end. Or no. All right. Where did our Visual Studio Code go? Oh no, no module named iTables. All right. You can go pip install iTables. Look at that. Now we got it. We're going to try this again. Render button. All right, look at that. That looks pretty neat. I'm going to open this up separately. I'm not super familiar with this repo specific, or this Data Explorer specifically, but we can see that we can filter by vote average. It seems like it might have downsampled something, so it didn't show us all of the items in our table, but I could search for like Mighty Ducks. Oh, it doesn't include that. I would have to see how iTables you can get all the movies, but this is a nice little interactive thing that is immediately available in this. And I'm sure you could include other columns here too. So iTables would be worth looking at. Let's see if there's other options. Looks like tabulate. So it looks like maybe I'll just paste this in the chat. I like this comment. I very much agree that if Apple did data frame tables, they would definitely call it iTables. So I guess iTables got the head start though on that one. All right, cool. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, like, honestly, like, I feel like I'm learning new things every day. So usually if you just do like, table data display Quarto and just type that into Google or something, you'll find something. The docs are very thorough on that front. All right, we've done a little bit of PDF reports. We've done a little bit of HTML. Like, you can get really sophisticated with the HTML stuff. Like, you can build full-on websites using HTML. So I recommend checking out the docs if you want to go full blast on HTML and websites and even more options for publishing, such as like GitHub pages or Netlify. Definitely check the docs, but I think it's worthwhile touching on dashboards and touching on slideshows before I conclude this live stream. I'll probably go until 2-ish, make it like just exactly 2 hours. So let's see. Okay. Trying to see if there's any other, there's some other questions real quick. Can you show some tricks with Seaborn? Not for this live stream. Maybe I'll make a video on that. But honestly, like I feel like oftentimes these days, like if I need to use Seaborn, like I am so very much often like going to my code and like using GitHub Copilot or something like, plot a heat map with Seaborn in Python or something like that. Like I'm very much often integrating AI with my code. So let's see what happens here if I run this to help me do things. And then I'm like tweaking from there. So there's a balance of, you want to know the basics of the library, but if you don't remember the specifics, sometimes you use the, GitHub Copilot or something like that. I did Command I to open that Copilot chat, use ChatGPT, whatever your, option you want to use. And then now if I run this, oh no, it's broken. Did I screw something up? I don't know. What did I do? Cannot convert string to float. I don't know where that's coming from. I guess I could use random data to generate Seaborn heat map. It's trying to actually use my data frame. Okay. This is my Seaborn shortcut. Oh man, now I'm confused with what code I have. Remove this. Okay, let's see what happens now. Run this. Oh, I didn't save it, but I think it automatically saved. So like created some sort of heat map here with random data. I don't know. So I don't know, GitHub Copilot and stuff like that, I feel like I'm using to help generate my graphs quickly, and then I tweak things as needed. That wasn't super helpful because this doesn't look that useful of a chart, but I think that's one thing, and maybe I'll make a video on that sometime else. I also see a question on, do I use Smark often to wrangle big data? Oftentimes I feel like the scale of the work that I'm doing, I'm not working with like thousands and thousands to, of gigabytes to, terabytes, et cetera. Like I'm working with data that's like 10 gigabytes or less. And I feel like I can usually deal with Python or SQL alone and not like deal with much Spark. I don't know, like performance isn't always usually that important to me. So I'm not using a ton of Spark, but it would be interesting to do more and maybe make videos on it. All right. Okay. So do you see the dashboard feature of Quarto being a viable replacement for a BI tool like Tableau? Yeah, I think definitely in the right circumstances. I kind of was mentioning this earlier, but like if you're a team that uses Python, uses R, Quarto is going to be way easier for you to pick up than it is to do Tableau or Power BI. I think it's just a matter of getting buy-in from your team, that maybe if there's people that are not super technical on your team, for them to be okay with you using Quarto and then maybe using their own tool. So it really depends on a case-by-case basis. But I think as long as you have a way of like as I showed with the Posit Connect Cloud, if you have a way to like get links to people that has your dashboard very easily, I think most data teams are going to be totally fine with you doing that. You do want to also be cognizant of like security of your data and whatnot. So there's some other like things to just maybe think about. But I feel like for operations that are a little bit, have flexibility, like a lot of I think Quarto is a great replacement. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. I feel like I have some Parquet files. Maybe I don't actually have much Parquet file videos on my channel, but also a good idea for the future of, maybe a big data project with like Parquet files and all of that fun stuff. Because I definitely have used Parquet a bunch in my actual professional work life. All right, getting into, I think, having the dashboard I just totally spaced. Going into dashboard real quick. So I'm going to go back to my master branch, or maybe I'll just do like a dashboard branch. And I'm going to reset this HTML report file to whatever I had before my last commit. All right. Also, I think this is something cool to see. For that like interactive chart, one cool thing that we did do before I get to dashboards, I swear I'm going to get to dashboards, but there are special like parameter keywords such as like content visible when format HTML. So when I run this, basically the HTML version has the scatter plot that's interactive, but by surrounding this whole block with these special keywords, basically, what am I trying to say? Basically, it hides that on the PDF format, so this doesn't show up, doesn't cause any errors or anything. All right, dashboards. So I do have a sample dashboard, but I think I'm gonna maybe start from scratch just because it's a little bit easier to understand the nuances. So we'll call this new dashboard.qmd. With any Quarto Markdown file, you kind of start the same, do the 3 dashes, and then we'll just say format is dashboard. And then it's super easy to convert Markdown to also add a title. Movie analysis dashboard is perfect. So we're starting here with a blank dashboard. There's nothing in here yet. We just see we have this screen that says movie analysis dashboard. So that's where it adds the title by default. What I can do is I can start adding rows and columns to this. So I could do a row. I think it's going to be rows by default, and a row. And I'll just put like random text in here, hello world, random text over here. And what we'll see is 1 row, 2 rows. You can start making this more interesting by adding like code blocks. So Python, add some Python code here. So I'm going to just do a GitHub Copilot chat, add a random scatter plot. Okay. It's so crazy, the AI stuff. Add a random scatter plot here, and then we'll add another code cell that just says like, print hello world. Okay, so we have this little code. We have our row, and now we have 2 code cells within this second row. If I run this, what these 2 blocks have done for us, and I'm a little confused why it's showing this text stuff here. I'm going to remove this titling stuff here. Just comment that out temporarily. Okay, so what this now has done is in our second row, we now have it split in half. So we have the scatter plot here and the hello world here. maybe just change the text up a little bit. But we can basically add these as many, code blocks as we want to add more columns to a specific row. So this now has 3 columns within this row. So random text, that. We can also change up the orientation. So I think if I just type in orientation, I think it by default is rows. But if I change this to columns, now this is a column, this is a column. And so this second column is going to have 3 rows in it. So we see that now it looks a bit different. If we add a level 1 heading, so I could do, level 1 heading. And I could do another level 1 heading. And maybe I give this a name. So if you're making like a movie analysis dashboard, maybe you make this one drama and you maybe make this one comedy. We run this. And now we see what these level 1 headers did is added this toggle options here and here. Thank you for tuning in, Tim. I see that you have to run. Shout out to you. This live stream will be here for you. Okay. We have our level 1 headers, which give us these tabs here. And we could add, dashboard elements via this syntax here. Some other cool things that are useful is like, there's some special components within Quarto. So like one special component is a value box. So if I do this component value box, something like this, I'm going to just put a random number here. You'll see the actual code in a sec. But you can insert cool looking things such as, I didn't quite close it off. Such as value boxes that look like this. This is much more interesting if I add, so we have another, I guess this is a column right now, column. If I add a bunch of these value boxes and run this, we see we get like a nice looking thing like this, and I could add another column. And it will automatically like fit things nicely into the space it's given. So you can start like formatting things very nicely using these dashboards. These value boxes, so if I go open up the documentation here for Quarto, Quarto Dashboards. This is how I'm typically approaching things. If I'm using Quarto and I need to do something specifically, like I type in Google, the examples are super helpful. So like the reason I knew to use a value box was I went to one of the examples. Like I saw that I liked the look of these things. I clicked on this in the top right to view the source code. And then I saw that they are using these value boxes. I also learned that these icons come from the Bootstrap icons. So if you look up Bootstrap icons, icons.getbootstrap.com, if you type in any icon here, so maybe I looked up like flag, I get this flag icon, and whatever this little value is here, I have access to that icon by going to my value box and typing in flag here. So now we'll see the first one change the icon when I re-render this. So we have a flag icon there. Cool little thing that you can do with the value boxes. There's also this concept of cards. So like for this hello world text, or maybe let's deal with this Python text, I could add a title here. And if I go back to this, right now it's just random text, but if I add this title keyword, we see that now it's, given a little bit of a extra, formatting. So this might help you make your charts look nicer by using this and then leveraging some Python code. Within dashboard.qmd, there's a little bit more of a built out and actual real dashboard. You can look at the code too, but it looks up like comedy movies. There's 683 comedy movies, average rating 6.59, average vote count 2742. I can interact with things like we could previously. Could look up the distribution of votes. You can do all sorts of stuff. You can play with tab sets too within your dashboard. So a lot of very useful things with dashboards. Trying to think what else there is. And I feel like getting a little lost myself just with, I feel like after presenting for a while, I started not thinking as clearly. I guess we'll really quick touch on slideshows. So we have new dashboard.qmd. If you wanted to make a slideshow in Markdown, in Quarto Markdown, you can, I guess, check out how the presentation that I showed at the start of the video was made. But the big thing is to use this reveal.js format to create a slideshow. And then there's some nice special classes. These might be Pandoc specifically. I forget if they're Pandoc. So Quarto is built off of Pandoc. And sometimes there's special classes and things you can use that are Pandoc specifically, and sometimes they are Quarto specific. So I forget if incremental is Quarto specific or Pandoc specific. But here's the slideshow that I showed at the start of the video, and I'll kind of walk through the components. But you can break up slides by using the same Markdown headers that we've been using all along. We're going to run this real quick. I'll pop this open. This incremental that we see here allows us to step through one bullet at a time. So it lets us see, these bullets one at a time. We're on another slide. Again, this is an incremental. One cool thing about the Quarto slideshows is that you have, it generates some stuff automatically. So I can very easily jump to different parts of the presentation. So for example, one thing that might have been useful is I showed hands-on learning. Oh, wait, no. I went to the gallery and showed that you could do slideshows and had some fun animations here. You can kind of skip around the presentation, but if I go to the actual presentation, we can see how a lot of that stuff is done. So for the me popping up and whatnot, we have this code here. And so basically what it's doing is a few different things. So we see that this is called complete center right here. The complete center is something that I believe that I defined to get the text. So I'm going to skip over to this slideshows spot. And hopefully people can see it's big enough. With slideshows, we have this one, which is completely centered on the screen. This .complete center, I'm surrounding it and telling it to be centered by defining this complete center actually separately. So I have a file called styles.css. Complete center is defined by this. So this is a CSS file, and I can add, some custom CSS logic in a class and then use it in my presentation as follows. And then I just need to specify that I have a CSS file here. So I can do all sorts of HTML and CSS customization by doing this. Other built-ins to Quarto specifically is like, if you want things to fade in specifically, you can do this fragment.fadeIn. And then if you want things to fade in a specific order, basically, depending on what section something is in, so these are all in the, the Slideshows slide, I can define fragment index, and that tells this selfie image to pop in first. Then we have the thumbs up image pop up second, and then finally this one is popping up third. So 1, 2, 3, do cool stuff like that. A lot of different formatting options. I think like sometimes this type of logic, specifying like layout, so like there's another layout thing here, it takes a little bit to get used to. I think the biggest thing is if you want to style something specifically, there's a lot of different like options like this, some built out options, and like this is defining 2 columns. So I'm going to go to this slide real quick, the PDF and Word document slide. We have column 1, column 2, and this is just a Quarto defined option, but we surround this with these 3 quotes or 3 colons, and that ultimately allows us to get 2 columns when we look at that. I learn all these things. I don't always memorize them. I'm always working off of the documentation. So kind of the 2 spots that I feel like I end up a lot is the guide and the reference. The guide, let's say I'm looking at like building a slideshow. I'm going to go to guide. I'm going to go to reveal.js because that's how I'm working on my presentation. This presentation that they provide here is really, really good. You can do all sorts of cool stuff, like show code in your slides and whatnot. Do all sorts of highlighting. I recommend checking out this, and you can see the source code here. But I'll go to like the guide and I'll see what I can do. Like I'll see things like adding columns to it by just following the docs. So I'm kind of doing something as I go. Similarly, the reference can be quite helpful because I can see like what my keyword and like formatting options are. So like these are the types of things that I can add at the top of my YAML. So I could add, something like smaller is true here, and everything you'll see on the screen for all slides will be now smaller than they were before. Everything's a bit smaller. But if I didn't want that to affect everything with those keyword arguments, then that's when I start surrounding things. So like maybe I surround my agenda specifically with that class. So if I do smaller here, I forget if I need to do a dot smaller or just smaller will work. Let's see. So if I go to our agenda, okay, so I need to specifically specify dot smaller. And now it knows to make the agenda smaller. So this is with the dot smaller. This is without the dot smaller. Wait, receive that. Did that change the size at all? I swear it should. Okay, that's without. This is with. And you see all the text is all smaller. So it didn't actually make the header smaller. That's kind of defined statically with the 2 pound signs, but it made everything within smaller. And I knew that smaller was an option because I went to reference, went to reveal.js, and I saw that smaller was one of my options. Again, like if you're looking for doing like figures or something and what you can embed with figures, all sorts of stuff in the documentation, I feel like spend 10 hours on Quarto. So there's only so much I feel like I can show in this presentation. I think I might pause there. We kind of jumped around a bit more than I was expecting to. When I planned this live stream. But I think that this is like we covered a lot. I'll make sure to timestamp things in the live stream retroactively so you can kind of navigate this and watch the full stream if you just caught bits and pieces of it. That being said, does anyone have any questions? I'm happy to stick around for another 10 to 15 minutes and just answer questions. And whether it be about Quarto or anything else, I would love to hear what you guys are curious about and see if I can maybe help or provide some insight. My lights are always turning off. Any questions? Also, shout out to these Topo Chico seltzers. They're pretty dang good. Not gonna lie, I do like these. It's powering me through right now. I had a early morning ice hockey game this morning, 6 a.m. puck drop. So I'm like, after this, I'll be taking a nap. Any questions? I guess I could look at the live feed. I'm seeing no questions in the live feed. And why is, oh my gosh, this webcam I have is not doing good with the light in the background. Let's see if I can live make it less bright. Whoa. I'm having fun over here. Exposure. Oh, maybe I make the exposure different. I feel like that looks better, right? Maybe just everything got better. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh. I can't figure it out. Oh, now I'm just dark. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, I don't know. All right. I'm seeing no questions still. Oh, did I just rotate on the screen? Yeah, I might look into Spark. I'm struggling. I think one thing I'm struggling with personally is like figuring out what to make, like what types of videos to make. And like, I'm always interested in hearing ideas. And I ideally would have like a kind of a series I could follow to make it a little bit more consistent. So Halman, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but love that you like the videos. Thank you for the comment. Any questions? I'm still hanging around for like a couple more minutes. If there's any questions, I will answer them. It could be about Quarto. It could be about life. It could be about my favorite color. If not, I'm totally fine just calling it too. All right, I feel like I also see people trickling out of the live stream, so it might be the logical ending spot. I think I'll do the classic YouTube stuff now. I don't see any questions. If you enjoyed this live stream, make sure to throw it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you to Posit Connect Cloud for sponsoring this video. To share your Quarto Markdown notebook or your files in a nice way, you can check the link in the description of this live stream to get started with Connect Cloud. I'm going to also be posting a more polished version of this kind of crash course on Quarto or on Posit's YouTube channel, so be on the lookout for that. I'll probably link it to the live stream once it's up. Yeah, this was fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I had fun presenting. More videos on the way soon. Hope everyone has a great rest of the evening, afternoon, morning, depending on where you all are. See you all soon in another video. Peace.